Hi, everyone, and welcome to Revelation Hour podcast. I pray that you are all well. I would like just to thank you guys so much for really giving us feedback and leaving your comment on our videos. As you probably know, we have begun two Bible studies series, I would say, one focusing on the book of Revelation and another one focusing on the system of the Antichrist. So please do continue to support our videos. Please share those videos to whoever might be interested to watch them, and don't forget to subscribe in the button below on YouTube, so we can actually have more followers and more viewing as well. That will help us a lot. Just to let you know that we're also available on many other platforms such as Spotify. We're available on Amazon Music. We're available on Apple Podcast, and we're also available on our social such as Instagram, X, and also Meta. I think I've said it all in that sense. So let's begin. We have begun a series, as I mentioned earlier on, called The System of the Antichrist, and we specifically focused over the last two videos on the New Age movement. So we actually always want to recap a little bit, but we actually take in really looking at Revelation 13:16, which is really, as we read this, says, "He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or their forehead, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." Let's just put this into context. So we have a world living under the rulership of the Antichrist. And as a matter of fact, this scripture is one of the most fascinating verse in the Bible. John is in Patmos. He's writing this amazing prophecy about this revelation about Jesus Christ. And what he's seeing is a world which is dominated, which is ruled by one man. A world which is actually full of a technology he can't really understand or even comprehend it when he's looking at the mark of the beast. But what he's looking at is looking at a world which is actually being under the rulership of someone with some kind of technology. Now, 50, 60, 70 years ago, for example, most of the commentators or readers or scholars in the Bible would not be able to kind of foresee exactly how this would happen. However, we are in 2025, and as we can see the technology advance tremendously, we can actually see this taking shape. We can actually see that the mark of the beast, which will be the ultimate tool to control and dominate the whole earth, will be in place. As a matter of fact, many people are speculating how the mark of the beast could actually potentially be. But as we gear towards this advanced technology, we now having a better understanding of a system that will be ruled by the Antichrist. And this is why I created this pyramid here that you can see on the screen. A system when the Antichrist, which is at the top of the pyramid, will be able to control the most powerful family in the whole world. It will have complete control of the financial system. It will have complete control of the resources of the world. And then it will be able to control the population through the religion, through government, through education, and through the media, which is unbelievable when we look at it. Now, as we can see today, this system, which we see on the screen here, operating as one world, that we're actually gearing toward this one world, which was in a way an ideology by some of the most powerful people, and the New World Order that we actually spoke about a couple of months ago. has been some kind of worldwide conspiracy which people believe was being orchestrated by the most powerful families, the richest people in the world, those who are making the decision. And their ways was to create a one world order, in that sense, which will actually be a one world religion, a one world cashless society, or I would consider one world currency as well, dominated by a one world government and a one world person. Now, it used to be quite far fetched, but it's not so far fetched now, as we're looking at every element of this system is being put in place, which really, when we talk about the concept of one, is the ideology of this new world order, which is also the ideology of the new age, as we've been speaking about, which is, as I mentioned again, talking about a one world government, a one world religion, a one world currency, and a one world leader. So when we spoke about last time around, we touched on the one world religion, which really we talked a lot about the new age, how the new age was implemented, who was the mother of the new age, Elena Blavatsky as well. We really associated the new age and traced its origin all the way to the Tower of Babel. This is the last video that we talked about. I don't really want to dwell about it so much, but just to invite you guys to kind of watch those videos that we done previously. Now, we also mentioned Nimrod, which was mentioned in Genesis chapter 10, verse 8 to 10, which he was seen as the son of Cush, but also of the great-grandson of Noah. Now, we saw that Nimrod actually investigated or instigated this rebellion against God by building the Tower of Babel so they can proclaim themselves as God, which is quite, in a way, very interesting, because it really showed us the kind of the new aspect really of the new age. In that sense, new age religion is to unite all religion in the alliances, I would say, of world religion, which actually will incorporate some of the most satanic doctrine or demonic doctrine that we have, such as evolution and reincarnation, metaphysics and astrology and socialism, humanism, all faith, all philosophy into one banner, which is really, when we talk about it, last time we mentioned the word coexist, we actually which the element of bringing all religion, all faith, all philosophy together, which again, when we talked about, mentioned about Blavatsky, which one of the aspects of a theology, or one of the aspects of a society or doctrine, was to completely destroy Christianity by diluting the word of God, by diluting Christianity, by bringing all religion into one. Now, I mention again, the new age really festers this ideology of one, and we can see that in Genesis 11:5-6, which is quite very interesting when he says this. Indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they began to do. Now nothing will be withheld from them. Here the Lord give us a great insight about unity or unification, what is possible when a country, people are unified, which is really be driving the new age, this unity syndrome that I'm mentioning, which is the kind of the motivation power behind the actions of the new world order, but most importantly the new age, which is actually a whole of network of organization which want, as I mentioned again, want to create this kind of one world, which we integrate society into a one monetary system and one world religion. Really, it's, when you think about it, it's truly just the simple ideology to make people believe that they can be God, And that is really when we're looking into New Age, and when we looked into it last time around, this is what we defined it. They can be God. That's exactly what they want. This is exactly when they want. They want to take the oneness of who God is. They want to take the worship of the true God and bringing the worship of man above God. Does it remind you somebody? Satan tried to do this as well. Satan wanted to be worshipped as God. He wanted to be elevated to where God was. So this New Age truly is a satanic, because its derivation is from Satan. If we look in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, from verse 12 to 14, it says this: "How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farther sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the cloud. I will be like the Most High." Very, very interesting. So when we're talking about taking away the oneness of who God is and the worship of God and bring man to be like God, we can see where this is going. And as a matter of fact, today, when we talked about the New Age movement, they believe that they are moved towards a new age, a new era. They believe that they have now moved from the age of what they're calling before to the age of Aquarius, which are the topic that we are going to talk about. So let's talk about what they believe, truly. Now, the New Age belief system has an astrological tendency, and I would say an astrological structure to it, because they believe that they have now moved from the age of Pisces, which is a symbol of the fish, to the age of Aquarius. They believe that they moved from the age of Christianity, that they define Jesus as a kingfisher or fisher of men, to a new age. And the age of Aquarius is tremendously attributed with being a time of tremendous advanced technology and group consciousness. And we are going to touch about those two aspects of it, because they are very important, how it shaped the world of today and how it will shape the world that will lead us to the system of the Antichrist. So let us look at the astrology behind their belief system in that sense. Now, the ancient astrologers, for example, thought of Aquarius as the sign of all things that are newly invented. That's what they believe. This is what they believe, that this sign is linked strongly to technology because of what it represents. Also, the Aquarius is also an air sign, which means therefore that is highly communicative in that sense, and is bent of gathering information, which when we think about it, is pretty similar to what we see in the 21st century, the gathering of data, of the gathering of information. The other attribute the astrologers see with Aquarius is also the strong need of independence and individualism. Again, this is something that we are seeing a lot in the 21st century. Aquarius is also a visionary and creative, but extremely rebellious too. Their job, Aquarius' job basically, is to challenge authority, tear down existing structures, and replace the outdated structure with something completely new. So when we look at it, it's not something new, it's also something better. So this is what they believe. And as we look at society of the 21st century, we can see the changes that are taking place. But what is the age of Aquarius? Truly, what it is. Now, I mentioned this, and I'm going to repeat that again. The age of Aquarius seek to bring the final evolution of mankind. I repeat, the age of Aquarius seek to bring the final evolution to mankind. We spoke about be a time of new technology and group consciousness. And that's where the New Age movement trying to steer us toward. And they're not hiding it. They openly admitted that that's the direction as a society that we should next, that we should take. A society where we will be unified they call it the unified consciousness, and that would be through a network. That's what they believe. That we should be all unified, we should be as one, and we should be a unified consciousness through a network. Now, this network that they refer, it is called the smart grid, which we are going to touch on it shortly. But before we do this, I want to just touch quickly on Aleister Crowley, because Aleister Crowley talked a lot about the smart grid in his prediction. And this guy, Aleister Crowley, was an English occultist, and among other talents that he has, such as being a magician, a poet, novelist, or even a painter, he was an occultist primarily, and this is what I want to touch on. And what he did, he founded the religion of Telema. That was a Western occultist religion that's really kind of promoting this kind of the true one, and he was seeing himself as the prophet of the early 20th century. Now, in his religion, the Era of Horus, which began in 1904 precisely, is basically the name of the current astrological age, one of the 12 in the grid here. If you kind of look into this kind of, I would say, esoteric and occult social spiritual doctrine, that's what you would see. Now, the interesting about this Aaron is marked by significant shift, I would say, in spiritual and social paradigms, and we've got to understand that. And the emphasis is on one true truth will. Very important. That's the emphasis. Emphasis on individualism and one truth will, which again completely different from God's will. So they are kind of looking to move away from God's will to focus on their own will. Now, when we look at the age of Aquarius, is the age of Aquarius the last stage of what I would say the system of the Antichrist and eventually the mark of the beast? Is that the last stage that they are seeing? Is there another age that needs to be developed before we're heading toward this? The truth is, I believe that they believe that that's the last stage. That's what they believe that we are heading toward. Now, when we go back to Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 to 17, and I read it for you, it says this. He calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or foreheads, and that no one may be or may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, the question we got to ask ourselves is this. Will the system and the mark of the beast be rooted in a current technology or the actual technology that they are currently working on? That is the question that we need to ask. Personally, I believe it is. I truly believe the current technology that they are working on, this system of the Antichrist, we used it, the mark of the beast, we used it. I think what we may have seen over the last few years, last 10, 20 years, potentially are prototype of what could be. But I think that what they are currently working on will eventually be used in the end times for the system of the Antichrist, but most importantly, in relation to the mark of the beast. Probably a topic that I may do at some stage, but not now. So, what type of technology are we looking at? Before that we look at this type of technology, I wanted to mention something that I've discovered, and I was mentioning it this week actually, as I was kind of putting everything together, is understanding Moore's law. And I didn't have a knowledge of it. Obviously, I am not computer science, so I would not know that. But we need to understand the Moore's law. And really to understand that, we need to understand where it comes from. So, what is the Moore's law? What is it? So, the Moore's law basically was named after this guy that you can see on the screen, Gordon Moore, which was the co-founder of Fairchild Semiconductors and Intel, and he was also a former CEO of Intel. Now, in 1965, he kind of noted, and I'm kind of paraphrasing what he's saying, that the number of components per integrated circuit was doubling every year. And he actually projected that will be doing that it will be doubling for the next decade. Now, and basically that means that processing power of computer and other devices will tend to increase, and that's what he says. And looking forward to the next decade, in 1975, he had to change it and said that instead of doubling every year, it will be doubling every 2 years. So what is interesting is that his prediction has been held since 1975 and has become known as a law in that sense. So what is not a strict scientific law, it has been for decades a very powerful observation that basically has guided technological advancement for decades. And that's why I wanted to mention it, because I can actually kind of bring the understanding that not the origin of technology, but that has been served as how technology has developed over the years. But truly, what does it mean for us? People that don't really understand computer science. So I am not computer science, but I will try to explain this in layman terms, if possible. So when we look at a computer and our phone, they have multiple microchips, and most people will understand that phones and computers are microchip. Now, microchip are composed of tiny electronic components, which they call transistors. Yeah, and those transistors, they act as switches to control the flow of electricity. So, what Moore says, or what is law predicted, is that the number of transistors which control the flow of electricity and which are in the microchip will double roughly every 2 years. That's what he says. So if the transistor increases at the rate of every 2 years, increases double every 2 years, what does it mean for our computers and what does it mean for whatever devices? Well, very simple. Number one, it will increase the computing power, because if you put more transistors, that will allow for more complex calculations and therefore faster processing speeds. And as you can see, over the decades, we have seen our computer becoming much more powerful, and even our storage able to store more data in that sense. The other thing is it allows to create small devices. As the transistors are becoming smaller and smaller, then the other size of a microchip become also smaller and smaller, which means that also the device begin to shrink. So that's one thing. And the other thing which people are always interested in is the cost. The manufacturing cost is actually cheaper now, as the increased density of transistors on the chip, it allows them to be able to scale it, which means that it costs less to make those devices. And that is really what has created this law. So now, when we look at Moore's law, it has been a driving force for innovation and also for pushing company to continually miniaturize transistors and improve chip performances, which in a way it has created smaller devices, smaller computers, smaller phone, as we've seen over the years. I remember back in the 80s, 90s, those phones those mobile phones used to be like bricks and they used to be huge. Now, some of the mobile phones just all in your hand. And this is how wonderful the technology advancement has been. Now, the question is that technology still valid today? Is it still valid in 2025? Is the Moore law still valid? As we stand, it's not obsolete, but it's changed, completely changed. And his prediction is not only about the increase of transistors or doubling the transistor over a decade. It's about now a multifaceted framework of innovation, of technology advancement as well, which make things a little bit more complex, a little bit more different than just a scaling process in that sense. However, when it comes to AI, the law is still valid, especially as the AI advanced so rapidly, they are scaling more the AI models. So this is things still valid to a certain extent. But when it comes to the acquiring technology that we spoke about, the element of using the Moore law or not the advancement technology really may tell us that actually we are leading towards the mark of the beast. With this advanced technology, the scaling of those devices and the multifaceted framework of the system really lead to the mark of the beast. Again, this is a question that we need to understand as we identify that the Age of Aquarius is the age of technology advancements in that sense and group consciousness. We got to understand that. So I mentioned group consciousness and I mentioned about the smart grid. Let us talk about the smart grid, because what it is when it comes to the new age on the Age of Aquarius, the direction that they are looking at is a unified consciousness as one network. And this one network that they are referring to is the smart grid, which I want to touch on in a nutshell. What is the smart grid? So this is the definition of smart grid that I found in Wikipedia. It says this: smart grid are electricity network that use digital technologies, sensors, and software to better match the supply and demand of electricity in real time. And what it does this is also minimizing the cost and maintaining and stability and reliability of the grid. That is basically what it does. Now, when we look at a smart grid, and I'm not talking about other places of France or other in Europe or the States or so on, but there are several towns and cities in the UK that are implementing or trialing smart grid technology, such as Hartlepool Park in Kent, some section of Manchester, Glasgow, and Exeter. Very interesting. Looking at Hartlepool, for example, Hartlepool Park, there is a new 8,500 homes development, and that's designated to be one of the first UK all-electric town. All-electric town. And they will be relying on a solar power smart grid. Now, the way it's going to work, they're going to use a private microgrid and they're going to manage everything locally. And that's going to be generated by electricity, and that's going to be able to potentially supplying the excess of electricity back to the grid. Very interesting. So we are already looking at smart grid technology, and it's interesting how that smart grid technology will be used in a new age and later on to fulfill the mandate of the system of the Antichrist. But then when we look at the smart grid, it needs to operate on two things mainly: AI and cloud computing system. Now, when it comes to AI, the reason they use the AI is to allow them to be more dependable, more efficient, and more sustainable when it comes to the system that they're going to be using. And that will help them to actually improve everything. The accuracy, that would help them to optimize the power, that will help them to optimize the distribution, and also to guarantee when there's a problem to be able to fix it. So AI will be able to do all this in terms of the smart grid. The other thing that they really need to use it is what I call the cloud computing system. Now, what is it? This is an extensive network of remote servers for those who are in IT and those who understand this very clearly. So a lot of servers, remote servers around the world, they will play this crucial role in the smart grid to really act as a kind of hub to collect data, to process data, and to analyze data. This is one of the things that we need to understand. And what it will do, again, it will allow the smart grid to be more efficient in terms of its management of vast amount of data. And also, it will be able to facilitate the real-time monitoring, analytics, and also, again, it's all about optimization and sustainability, something that people are talking a lot about, the sustainability that wants to be created in our world, in our society. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it is what it is. Now, what they say is as well, they say that in the future, smart grid, they will not only enhance the energy management, but they also will empower people to be more active in that sense, to play a more active role in the energy ecosystem. So that is very interesting, because when people play an active role, how would they do it? I think by uploading the information. And that is what I'm talking about this unifying consciousness to one network. But people begin to upload the information. Now, we know today companies, especially entertainment companies or any other companies, are driven from consumer for more speed and more content. So they are working to develop sustainability, but also working to develop speed and content. And that's what today we're operating on 5G. Most of the country here in the UK operating on 5G. Now, I don't know. I don't have any knowledge whether there will be a 6 or 7G, and I'm not sure whether China, and I've been told that China and other part of the world operating on a higher network, but I don't know. But what we do know, is the importance of speed, network, and efficiency. So as we look at our network improvement and efficiency and speed, then we will see the smart grid will continue to expand and to become even more reliable, which means that more town and more city will begin to embrace this new technology. Now, when we look at what we do today with the cloud system and so on, today people upload all their personal data into a cloud-based service. And you don't have to be smart to understand that. When we look at Google Drive and any other platform, and even on those who actually have a Mac, for example, iPhoto and so on. So what you actually do, you upload on the cloud, all your documents are all uploaded in a cloud. Microsoft One, for example, also have a cloud system. So most organization and most software have a cloud system where you actually upload your data. The data that you upload is your life, your pictures, your videos, your wedding, your birthdays, your vacations, your documents, even your passport, and so on. So because of this, you are able to upload all your information. But I do have a problem with it, because it also means that anyone with a password or anyone who can access your password, such as hackers, for example, as we can see happen a lot. Hackers who actually come in can actually retrieve your information. Now, the other thing with smart grid is that, as I mentioned about hackers, they can stop this. They can change things. And that I have a problem. And the other thing as well is, who do you think is storing your information when you upload it on the Google Drive, for example? Who will be looking into your personal information? So that is one of the technology when we talked about the kind of one consciousness on network. The other thing as well that we got to mention as well, and I wanted to mention, is the iWatch. Now, I have an iWatch. I do own an iWatch. Now, what the iWatch done, they monitor heart rate all day long, and even there's an app in your iWatch called Health Analyze of Vitals. Now, those things are very good. I'm not saying we shouldn't be wearing iWatch. I'm just saying those things are very good because they help you when it comes to your health. But we got to understand that they're also trackers, and they're also location trackers. Find my phone and so on. There's so many trackers on our smartphone today. And today we can't pretty much operate, any software without signing a term agreement statement. Most of people don't read it, to be honest. And that means that all those free apps that we actually downloaded, they're not only looking at our contact list on the phone, but what they also do, they send all the data to larger data mining companies that do whatever they want with our information of data. Now, they claim that is for marketing purposes, advertising, case studies, demographic, anything like it. The truth is, we don't really know. We don't really know, and that's the reality. And unfortunately now, we are so used to our devices, we are so used to our phone, and so used to our iWatch and so on, that pretty much is very difficult to get rid of. And also, we got to understand that people pretty much know everything about our lives. And that's the reality. This is the society that we're living in. 21st century, the society where data, information pretty much is out there. You can try something. I tried that last time. If you just type your name on Google, just type your name and see the amount of information that would come about yourself, your picture that you uploaded, your videos, anything which is related to your name would be displayed on Google in that sense. It's very interesting. You should try this. Now, the interesting thing about this, when we talk about data mining or monitoring or kind of supervising, the kind of thing, there's a company, or I would say there's a machine called the switch bezel machine. I don't know if you heard of it. This machine was kind of the prototype electronic monitoring system that was developing in the 1960s by Ralph Schwisgeber. I'm trying to say the name, very difficult for me to say, but he was developing, and his idea was to be able to track the location and the behaviors of the paralyzed and mental health patient. However, what is interesting, we know this machine was kind of conceived and have a medical school in the 1960s, but then one of the article that was written on this machine in 1966 and was actually published by the Harvard Law Review started with this kind of, I would say, disturbing note, and I read it for you. It says this: an electronic device capable of tracking the wearer's location, transmitting information about his activities, communicating with him, and perhaps modifying his behavior is now in experimental use in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This method of surveillance differs from eavesdropping in that the wearer is aware of it and may have consented, at least nominally, to its use. Since the wearer carries the device with him, it can be used to keep him under continuous surveillance. Partly because of these factors, tracking is likely likely to have a strong effect on behavior. Now, maybe I will do another video on this machine, but the interesting that I mentioned before, because we are so attached to our devices, it's very difficult to remove those devices from our daily lives. But the reality is, those devices can be used as monitoring and surveillance. And I suspect that eventually, when it comes to the system and the Antichrist, this is what will happen. All those devices that we are used to will eventually be used to do that. Now, let's look into the Aquarian technology. What we understand about the Aquarian technology is that it's ushering a new ideology or a new type of religion, which is obviously derived from the New Age, which is called transhumanism. Transhumanism. Don't know whether you heard of it. Is another aspect of the Aquarian technology. That's what it is. So what is transhumanism? So, in a nutshell, as you look at it, and that is the definition of it, is a philosophical and intellectual movement that advocates for using technology to enhance human capabilities and overcome limitations. That's what it is. It's the use of technology to enhance human capabilities and overcome limitation. I can hear people saying, are we talking about super soldiers and so on? That is part of it. Now, the truth is, this ideology or this movement see a future where humans are augmented with technology like genetic engineering, for example, AI, and nanotechnology to basically achieve longer lifespan, enhance cognition, and improve well-being. This is a very interesting. To make us better, stronger, fitter, longer human being using technology. This is very interesting because what I believe personally that for many, transhumanism is become an alternative to Jesus Christ's offer of salvation. That's what I believe. I believe that transhumanism offers man a technological resurrection. That's what I believe. And I believe that it is a resurrection from death and entrance into an artificial heaven. And the name for it, you can call it the world brain, or you can call it the hive or the hive mind, whatever you want to call it. I believe that's what it is. By using technology to change human, not because to heal, but most importantly to make the human better, as I mentioned, stronger, as I mentioned, live longer, as I mentioned, smarter in that sense. To cheat death. That's what it is. That's what I believe that for many, this is the option that they will go for as an alternative to salvation. You know why? Many reasons. One of the main reasons I believe is people don't want to die. So people don't want to die. They will do anything to stay alive and to live longer. The element of immortality, that's something that has been plagued since the day, sin enter in that sense. And I think It's almost like this desire to return to the time of that relationship with God, the immortality that we had before. We're longing for the immortality, but I think it's a lack of understanding what we're longing for. The truth is we're longing for that relationship with Jesus. That's what we're longing for. But most people don't see that. They don't understand that that's what they're longing for. There's something inside of our being that's longing to reconnect with Jesus, And once you don't have that connection, you're going to be looking at everywhere to find out where to reconnect with something that you can't really understand, you can't really grasp it. And the enemy use all sorts of devices and elements not only to distract us, but to make a thing that Jesus is not the only way, truth, and life. Actually, he is. But what Satan does, he makes people think that there's other ways to get to immortality. There are other ways to get to the state of God-like. Because that is really what I mentioned again, a New Age ideology of God, man like God, or man becoming like God. Like Satan wanted to be like the Most High that we read in the book of Isaiah 14, verse 12 to 14. And that's exactly what it is. They believe that death, disease, and aging can be overcome through new scientific breakthroughs. That's what they believe. Now, the interesting thing is when you look today, some people use cryonic to freeze their bodies so they can be revived later on. And very interesting, live longer. That's kind of utopia world, I would say, when with advanced science and advanced science and technology and to treat diseases. Now, there's a company called Alcor, which is based in Arizona. They actually offer cryonic preservation to its members. And the option is to freeze your body after death with the intention that you be revived, when the future technology make it possible. And it costs about $200,000, which is about £180,000 really to do that. So you can freeze your body for it and then just come back later on. And really, that seems so crazy to think about people in the world think like that. But this is a ideology which is actually spreading everywhere, and even sometime among some of the churches, the dilution and diluting of things. Not interesting. So it's not only what they are doing or what they believe, is the fact that this ideology of transhumanism are also entered into the mainstream of Hollywood movie, and Avatar is one aspect of it. When you look at Avatar, the transfer of consciousness from one body to another. There's other films like Transcendence, for example. We actually do the same thing. There's a series which is, I think, available on Netflix or Amazon Prime, called The 100. And in some of these episodes in the 100, you can see the kind of transfer of consciousness again from one body to another. And then you've got the element of all the MCUs and the DCUs, which the enhancement of humans, meta-human, are they calling it, or superheroes as well. So all these are part of all the kind of transhumanism agenda that has been plaguing around us for many, many years and many decades as well. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, did COVID actually make this plausible? Did COVID make it more plausible to see a post-human era in the near future? Did it? Possibly. I mean, we can argue that the lockdown has changed human behaviors when it comes to technology. We can argue that since we came back from COVID, the world has truly fully embraced the digital world, which was new to many during lockdown, or before lockdown, I would say. The time that we spend in front of our computers, consuming contents, the execution of tasks away from our desks, for example, the minimalizing of social contact, touch, for example. The only thing that we had at the time, the only kind of interaction that we have at the time was through a digital version of ourselves, through Zoom or any other platform at the time. And I think because of that, we have become more dependent on technology. Now, we can argue that COVID and the lockdown accelerated a shift away from human to human to technology in that sense, or human to machine or towards machines, which see an extensive acceleration of artificial intelligence since we came out of COVID. And you can see places like now humanoid and robots have been created with, even here and so on. So the question that we may ask ourselves is, was it all planned all along, or was it just an opportunity which presented itself to those who were seeking to be like God in us, and those who were seeking to kind of expand this kind of ideology? We will never know, but that's something that we definitely need to consider in that sense. Now, when we look at the age of Aquarius, what would the age of Aquarius would look like? What it is that the technology, what it is that they're working on, or they've been working on, or they have released, what it is. The first thing that I wanted to mention is in relation to our body. I mentioned the word augmented. So our body will definitely be augmented. Now, some of the things that we can expect in the near future, if it's not already here in our doorstep, is the arrival of contact lenses that can take pictures of videos. At the moment, videos is a big thing. You see people use their mobile phone to record content on themselves or whatever they're doing or wherever they're going or whatever happened. But can you imagine contact lenses which will allow you to take pictures or take video? That is crazy technology when we think about it. We also talking about universal language translators, which you'll be able to listen like in your earbuds, kind of language translator put in your earbuds, and as you go to a country, you visit a country, as somebody talk, it's already translated in your earbuds, in your earbuds, what you are going to say, or you can actually understand what the person is saying, which means that people will need to do language classes, because these devices will be able to translate the language that the country that you're in, for example, which means that you'll be able to communicate now everywhere in the world. You'll be able to travel everywhere in the world. You'll be able to communicate in Chinese, in Russian, some of the difficult languages, or most of the simple languages, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and any other language in the world, just by the earbuds that would be in your ears can actually translate what you're hearing. And then as you speak, they also be able to hear it and they'll be able to understand you. Again, are we not going back to the Tower of Babel? What was the issue with the Tower of Babel? They were speaking one language, and with one language, they were able to try to accomplish this thing. And God asks to separate, and He has to confuse the language. But then we are trying to go back into this one language system. Again, another way. What about an exosuit now that can increase your physical strength? This is another thing that they're working on. We mentioned the element of super soldier, for example, in the army. So that would be something extraordinary alongside machines in that sense. And we're also talking about the increased use of implants, ranging from brain microchips and neural laces to mind control prosthetics and RFIDs. I just read that one now. RFIDs chips that will allow the users to unlock doors or computer passwords with a wave of a hand. Yep, those are some of the technology that people are working on. The other thing that we can mention as well is in the medical area, for example. We looking at bodies that are going to be augmented into form of the, I would say, what they're talking now, and I'm mentioning here, but I want to kind of try and see whether I can explain. For example, many women can't have children, so they're using the element of IVF to have children. But now with the advanced IVF technology, they will be able to select the most intelligent embryos, and they will use genetic editing technology to be able to decide what type of child they want, for example. Color their eyes, their hair, personality, character, IQ, for example. All these things, they'll be able to decide whether they want a strong child that can be in the next basketball team or football team, or if they want a child that can think like Einstein, for example, or maybe they want a child if they have the ideology of a fascist, or I don't know, maybe one blonde blue eyes, because they actually believe those are the best. All kind of nonsense will come out of it, and I think that's dangerous. That's dangerous because what it does, it will promote a new type of race, and it will neglect the current human race that's here, which is so diverse. It's against diversity. They will look this as diverse, but in a way it is against diversity, because now they will be able to choose what type of child they want. And the other thing as well is they'll be able to remove any disease that maybe parents had or grandparents had that could be passed on from generation to generation. With those engineering genetic modification, they'll be able to eradicate all that. This is very, very interesting. And those are things that are not sci-fi. Those are things that are currently in the process of being implemented in society. That's the technology that they're working on. So one day, they will be able to create a race which will be more resilient. We optimized, again, they will look as the race be optimized in that sense, like they're talking about a robot or maybe talking about a computer, but they're also a race that they can monitor continually. It's all the element of more monitoring and surveillance as well that we really need to understand when it comes to transhumanism and when it comes to New Age. Is the element of be monitored and the element of be basically watchful in that sense. So those are what we're talking about when we talk about body be augmented. The other thing that I can mention as well here is our thought process that'll be much faster and more transferable. So we'll be able to transfer knowledge or transfer our thought process in that sense. We spoke earlier on about implants, the BMIs, for example. This is kind of called brain machine interfaces. That's what it's called, BMIs in that sense. So they'll be able to implant those in the brain. And there are companies currently that develop this concept. There's a company that Elon Musk had called Neuralink. Don't know if you heard of it. We actually developed those. Other organizations such as Meta working on it as well, and obviously DARPA, which is this big organization. Now, those devices, when they implementing into the brain and work as an implant, they will dramatically, and I said dramatically, change the way in which we communicate. And that is reality. It will change the way we communicate with each other. That is something that is going to happen. It's happening. The Neuralink is already out there and is already being used on some people as well. So when we look at digital devices that we're having currently at the moment, which is mobile phone, iPhone 16 at the moment, for those who use iPhone or Samsung devices or whatever, it would be very, very, very different. Now, when we look up today, for example, when we speak, we are limited sometimes by the speed with which we speak, and sometimes we are limited by the amount of word that we know, on the amount of word that we speak, or amount of word that we can type. Now, imagine when we have this implant called a Neuralink implanting in your brain, and how we begin to interface with a computer. BMI will change all that. BMI will enable communication at a speed of thought in its full unfiltered state. And that's what they're working on. And interestingly, Mark Zuckerberg has described this, and I'll read it. This is what he said a few years ago. He said, "Today, when we share our vacation experiences, we upload photos and videos." So that's what we do. And he said, with BMIs, I can share my full sensory and emotion vacation experience with my friend and family. This is crazy. This is crazy. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, this is moving society toward this kind of one consciousness, one network as well. It's really kind of bringing everything into one. So when we look at transhumanism, for example, and again, I didn't go into too much detail about it, but that's some of the technology that you can look yourself and do your own research and decide what you see. But when we're talking about transhumanism, they truly believe that the advancement of human tech will usher a new era for the human race. That's what they believe. That's what they believe. They believe that humanity has been limited, number one, because we are mortal, because we are dying, and that element of not wanting to die, that element of get to the element of transcendence, what they call transcendence, where our body will no longer decay, where our body will no longer die, where our body will actually live and live and live forever by just transferring our consciousness or uploading consciousness to a network or to another a body, in that sense, to be able to continue to live and live and live, which we allow them people now to be able not only to conquer the earth, but now to go beyond the earth, conquer space, in that sense. That is very dangerous. But it does remind us something. There's a reason for it. And the Bible really point out, really in the book of Revelation, chapter 19, that just before the second coming of Jesus Christ, that the characteristic of the word that we will see, it will be complete, unparalleled human arrogance. And it will be so arrogant that they will be led by the Antichrist, the whole human race, when they see Jesus. And they will launch not only a spiritual rebellion against God, but actually they will act. They will do a physical confrontation against Jesus when he's come back. At the battle of Armageddon, that's where they will come. They will try. The Bible clearly said that they will unite together and they will try to wage war against Jesus and the saint. That's what they say. If you read this, it says this. "And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, and the army gathered together to make war against him who sat on a horse and against his army. Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked sign in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone." Interesting. Man will believe that he is immortal. Man will believe that he is all-knowing just like God. Man will believe that he is all-powerful just like God, because the ideology behind it will be to the point that people will believe that they are like God, that they are immortal, that they can't die, that they, because of that technology advancement, that they will be able to move from one body to the other. So therefore, in their mindset, they will believe that they will not die. It's payable all over again. They scatter one mind, one consciousness to reach it to the heaven, to proclaim themselves to be God. Very interesting. So, coming up next, we are going to go back to the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 12 to 17. And we are going to look at the third church, which is Pergamos, which is the compromising church as well. Then we'll be going back again to the system of the Antichrist. I think we only got about 2 or 3 more videos after the one that I'm going to release, which this one's going to be talking about the law of attraction, something which I wanted to do for a while, which also something which is affecting some of our churches today. So we are going to be talking about the law of attraction. I'm going to tell you about what it is and how it's operating, not only in the world, but also in our churches, and how, again, this is something that would culminate into building the system of the Antichrist. So, guys, I hope that you enjoy today. Thank you again for watching those videos. Please don't forget to subscribe and the button or to share those videos, whatever you are. And until then, I see you there.